Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact. Yeah. The work that we have done, for example, capping the cost of insulin at $35 a month for our seniors is something I care deeply about.
Vice President Harris is continuing her media blitz this week by making an appearance on The View. During the interview, she admits the one thing that the Trump campaign has been trying to tell voters all this time, and CNN ends up calling her out for it. But before we get to that, let's start with more of her crazy lies about Trump. Watch.
Donald Trump prefers to run on problems instead of fixing problems. He's not solution-oriented. And again, I will invite people, if you really need to know how he thinks, since he doesn't do these kinds of interviews, watch his rallies. He spends full time engaged in grievance about what has happened to him.
Right.
He spends full time perpetuating lies and misinformation. He spends full time talking about fictional characters, I mean,
name calling, a lot of
name calling and demeaning people, belittling people. But what he does not talk about is you. He does not talk about what you need. He does not talk about what your parents need, what your children's need. That's not what he talks about. He doesn't talk about your child's needs. He talks about his needs.
Right.
And I think, again, back to the point, in this election, people are ready for a new generation of leadership that's about fixing problems.
You know what? She's right. People want leaders who are going to solve problems. But her problem is she causes problems. See the inflation that's taking place, right? See the immigration crisis, right? See the Ukraine and Russia war. See the Afghanistan withdrawal, right? I mean, she's the person that's been behind a lot of these issues in America because either one, she was the last person in the room, or two, when we get to later in this video, we know that Joe Biden delegated a lot of authority to her. And so I don't think that's probably the best thing for her to say because people are not that stupid. Now, let's roll it back and go back to some of these lies about, well, Trump is only for himself. He only talks about himself. He doesn't talk about your kids. He doesn't talk about you, your family, which is all utterly false. And listen, I'm not even going to tell you what he said. Let's hear it from Trump himself.
So what our opponents have never understood is that this movement has never been about me. It's always been about you. It's been about a lot of people, millions and millions of people, the biggest ever in the history of this country, maybe anywhere. And everyday people who are the heart and soul of our country. They love our movement. They love our country. And they know they're doing right. Your hopes are my hopes, your dreams are my dreams, and your future is what I am fighting for every single day.
Okay, so those remarks were from his Butler rally, which was historic, right? It's the site of the first assassination attempt. And again, this entire movement is about you, me. It's about people who love America, who want America first policies. They want to stop being sold out by these corporate elites, the donors, the swamp in Washington. And a lot of people said it best. Donald Trump is the blue collar billionaire. That's why he has so much support. And if what she was saying was true, then he wouldn't have the amount of support that he has. I mean, that's just what it is. Okay, so one of the biggest focal points in this election cycle with both campaigns is trying to get the voters to see the candidates in a certain way. And what I mean by that is it's called the change candidate, right? You want your voters to see you as different from what's been happening over the last 3.5 years. Now, the latest poll that we were able to look at that came out showed that Trump is still beating Kamala Harris, meaning that most people see him as change and not her. And so what she's about to say that we're going to show you confirms that. And I think this is a huge mistake. Let's watch it.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Yeah. What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
Well, we're obviously two different people, and we have a lot of shared life experiences. For example, the way we feel about our family and our parents and so on. But we're also different people, and I will bring those sensibilities to how I lead.
Nothing that comes to mind is her answer. Nothing that comes to mind? You do understand that Joe Biden has the lowest approval rating, right? Like, in a very long time. And that's why with the latest polling showing that 65% of America believes that America is on the wrong track. Okay, so when you go out there and you say nothing comes to mind, you're pretty much shooting yourself in the foot. And let me just give you guys some examples here, right? So if there's no difference when it comes to the Afghanistan withdrawal, she loses on that. If nothing comes to mind when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, okay, she loses on that. If nothing comes to mind between Hamas and Israel, she loses on that. If nothing comes to mind to the open border that happened at least 3 years of their administration, she loses on that. And that's why CNN, I believe, had no choice but to point that out and really slam her for her answer. Watch this.
Molly, what do you make of that?
I'm surprised, frankly, that she doesn't have more to say about this, given that she and her campaign know that this is one of the main questions that voters have about her. And one of the main things she's been trying to establish as part of her candidacy is the idea that she would represent a break from the past 4 years, and to not be able to come up with something to say in that moment. She continues to not be particularly nimble on her feet in a lot of these interviews, and this is a very obvious question that gave her an opportunity, frankly, to differentiate herself in a way that would have made news, that would have answered, I think, the curiosity of a lot of voters who want to know how she would lead differently. And she's not very specific in laying that out, and she can't point to a decision she would have made differently, which, you know, in an electorate that thinks that doesn't like the way this administration has led and that doesn't like the track that the country is on, that may not be a very satisfactory answer.
Now, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Let's get this video out to more people just like you and me. And if you want to support us further, you can go to the link in the description below. You can grab yourself a sweater like the one that I'm wearing here, or you could buy us a cup of coffee. Now, of course, that was not a satisfactory answer, and it was a missed opportunity on her behalf. And it might come back to backfire on her when it's all said and done. One way or another, we will know. November 6th, we're going to know whether the strategy that they chose to use when it comes to Kamala Harris's campaign was very smart, or once again, it was Hillary-esque, where it was arrogant at times. Hey, we don't need to do any interviews. We don't need to answer questions. We don't need to provide any specifics, right? We expect that certain people are going to vote for us regardless, right? Just assuming the vote. And we're going to see if it's going to pay off for her. I don't believe it will, but hey, we'll know November 6th. And what we'll also know, how serious border security was for people over the last 3.5 years. Will they actually buy, I'm talking about the voters, will they buy her excuse that, well, we had a strong border bill and Donald Trump killed it, even though it was in 2024? Or will they believe Trump in saying, hey, I had a secure border, they came in and broke it? And obviously the answer to that remains to be seen, but here's what she had to say about border security.
As you rightly pointed out, the former president blocked the strongest border security bill in decades. Yeah. But there remains this perception among voters that the Biden administration dragged its feet and waited too long to act to address the border crisis. Can you speak to why voters may feel that way?
Sure. Well, first of all, to your point, when we first came in office, hours after we were inaugurated, the first bill we offered, before infrastructure, before bringing down the cost of prescription medications, it was to fix our broken immigration system. And it never got taken up, in large part for political reasons, because solutions are at hand, and we need to fix the problem.
All right, so listen, I'm going to play you guys a clip here shortly, just debunking all of this that she just said, because this was just truly lies, right? Now, there are some truths, right? Let's be honest. The truth is that the border was secure when they took over. It's also true that they opened the border by repealing every single executive order from Trump. And it's also true that they waited 3.5 years to issue their own executive orders to close up the border, because the border bill was not originated by Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. It came out of Congress. So they wouldn't get credit for that either. And the bottom line is they broke this. And I don't think they can win on this issue. And the polls show that. Now, before I go any further, let's hear from the commander-in-chief, Joe Biden, that is. During his campaign when he was running to be the president, someone warned him about the idea of repealing all of Trump's executive orders when it comes to border security.
Mr. Vice President, under the Trump administration, asylum has virtually ended. ICE detention centers are practically empty. Your new plan calls for reversing President Trump's harsh plan. But won't that restart a brand new border crisis? I mean, what would you do with all those people in camps now waiting in Mexico?
It will if we don't do it well. We don't reach out to the communities that are willing to, the charitable communities that will come in and help, and in addition to us spending millions of dollars providing for access for judges, access for asylum folks to be on the border, to move quickly. Because if we just say, okay, all done, I've withdrawn the order, you're going to have a crisis on the other side of the border as well.
And that's exactly what has taken place, a border crisis. And at the end of the day, I don't care whether you say, well, it was smart, it wasn't smart, it was the right thing, it was the wrong thing. The results tell the story. More border crossings than any record in history. It's crazy. When she gets up there and she's talking about, well, it's Trump's fault, it's Trump's fault. No, it's not. When Joe Biden was campaigning, he clearly knew that if I do this, it could lead to what we have now. Okay, so as I wrap up this video, I got some few points for you guys. Okay, number one, I said it earlier in the video, change candidate. This is the nail in the coffin to that whole rhetoric, okay? Clearly, she's not going to be any different from Joe Biden, except obviously her gender, her age, and how she conducts interviews, which I kind of don't really see a difference if you paid attention to that clip I showed you Joe Biden earlier. I mean, it's like both of them are just, they don't even know how to answer questions. It's crazy. The second thing I have here is she's not presidential. So at a certain point, you got to stop acting like you're a candidate and you're in a primary, and then you got to start acting like you are already the commander-in-chief, like you are already the president. And the way she goes about answering questions does not make me feel that way. And I think that's the energy and the attitude and the image that has always been missing from her campaign, which leads me to really number three is she's, again, doesn't make people feel like she's authentic. It just continues to amplify how fake she is, how much of a career politician she is, how much she's part of the establishment, how much she's just a walking empty suit with a bunch of talking points. She hasn't said anything that makes you say, wow, that's very insightful, or wow, you're really giving it to me straight, right? I mean, that's the thing that people love and hate about Trump is he's not a politician. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks, and he's a businessman. And so he has a lot of things that he says that in time become true. Like he said, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris gets into that White House, the border is going to be a disaster. What happened? If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris gets into the White House, the Middle East is going to catch on fire. What happened? If Joe Biden and Kamala makes it to the White House, the economy is going to be crazy. What happened? At the end of the day, I don't understand if you're an undecided voter, independent, even a Democrat, you see these interviews that she's been doing and you feel confident about her leadership as the potential commander-in-chief. You are delusional if that's you. And that definitely is my opinion. But what's yours? What do you guys think about this appearance she made on The View? And what do you think about what CNN had to say about the answer she gave, where she clearly refused to separate herself from Joe Biden, even though he continues to do her no favors, by the way. But let me know what your thoughts are and more in the comments section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.